I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. Can you seek advice and still make a terrible decision? Absolutely. In 1 Kings chapter 12, two brand new kings face some of the biggest decisions of their lives. Both of them seek advice. Both of them listen to advisors. And both of them make disastrous decisions that affect generations to come. So maybe the question isn't simply, do you seek advice? Maybe the better question is, what are you looking for when you ask? Are you looking for wisdom or approval? Are you looking for God's direction or someone to confirm what you've already decided to do? Today, we're going to take a look at Rehoboam and Jeroboam, two kings who show us how to get advice and still get it terribly wrong. And I'll share 5 principles that can help you make better decisions when you're facing a major crossroads in your own life. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I've been reading through the Bible this year. I read a little bit of the Old Testament, then I read the Psalms, and then I read the New Testament, so I'm kind of chugging through there. And this last week, I was in 1 Kings chapter 12. Now, it's one of those chapters that I've read many times before, but this time, a word just kind of rose to the surface, and that word was advice. Solomon has died, his son Rehoboam becomes king, and almost the same time, Jeroboam is about to become king over the northern tribes of Israel. So you've got 2 new kings, 2 men with enormous responsibility, 2 men facing decisions that would affect thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. And here's what caught my attention. Both of them sought advice at this juncture in their lives. And both of them made terrible decisions. That got me thinking because I am an absolute big believer in seeking advice, and I hope you are too. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 18 says, "Plans are established by seeking advice, so if you wage war, obtain guidance." Proverbs 11:14 says, "For lack of guidance, a nation falls, but victory is won through many advisors." And Proverbs chapter 15, verse 22 says, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed." So interestingly, those proverbs come from Solomon. He literally wrote the book on advice when it comes to those maxims in the book of Proverbs. And who's his son? Rehoboam. Okay, so Rehoboam, his dad is Solomon and wrote all of these passages about seeking advice. So Rehoboam probably grew up hearing about the importance of seeking advice from his dad. And to his credit, that's exactly what he did. His problem wasn't that he didn't seek advice. His problem was that he chose the advice that told him what he wanted to hear. So let's talk about Rehoboam, advice or approval. Here's what happened. After Solomon died, the people came to Rehoboam with a request. They essentially said, "Hey, your father made our yoke heavy, lighten the load, and we'll serve you. You know, your dad made us work like crazy, and it's just a massive building project, both for his palace as well as for the temple. Can you lighten it up just a little bit?" Now, that's a huge leadership moment. Rehoboam wisely says, "Hey, give me 3 days. Let me think it over. Let me seek advice." Okay, great initial decision. Then he seeks advice. First, he goes to the elders who served during the time of his father, Solomon. And now these are experienced men. They've watched Solomon lead. They've seen what worked. They saw what didn't work. They understand the people and where people are at. And so they give Rehoboam some remarkable advice, some very Christ-like advice. 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 7 says, "If today you'll be a servant to these people and serve them and give them a favorable answer, they will always be your servants." I love that. If you want to lead people, serve them. That's what he tells them. So if you want influence, serve. If you want loyalty, serve. If you want people to follow you, don't spend your time reminding them who's in charge. Serve them. So these elders understood something that Jesus would later teach his own disciples and model for them. Greatness in God's kingdom is found in becoming a servant. But, okay, here's where the drama steps in. Rehoboam didn't like that answer. He didn't like that answer at all. So he goes to the young men he'd grown up with. Okay, so these are the young Turks. These are the young bucks that he grew up with. They're young. You know, you can just see them. They've got their T-shirts on with, you know, their biceps are hanging out. They're just really strong and young and just feeling their oats. And they give him very different advice. Basically, don't back down, don't show weakness, show them who's boss. Your father was tough, be tougher. Your father gave him a heavy burden, hey, make it heavier. Now, Rehoboam has two completely different recommendations. One appeals to humility, the other appeals to pride. One says serve, the other says dominate. And Rehoboam chooses the one that appeals to his sinful nature. He's a young man as well. And the consequences are enormous. 10 tribes reject him. Okay, that's how Jeroboam gets his start. The kingdom splits. The United Kingdom built by David and Solomon is torn in two just with one bad decision. One decision changed the course of Israel's history. Proverbs chapter 14, verse 12 says, "There is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end it leads to death." And here's what I find challenging personally. Rehoboam could truthfully say, I got advice. He could just say, well, I got advice and that's what happened. He did. He absolutely did. Good for him. He asked people what they thought. He listened to different perspectives. That's also good. But that wasn't enough because sometimes we don't really want advice. We want approval. We've already decided what we'd like to do. Now we're looking for somebody who's going to tell us it's okay. You ever done that? I've done that many times. It's crazy. It's true. It's sad, but it is true. You ask one person, you don't like the answer, so you ask somebody else, still don't like that answer. It's not what you're looking for, so you just keep on asking. And eventually somebody says, hey, that sounds like a great idea to me. You're like, oh, good. Okay, I'm glad I got advice on that one. Perfect. Wow. Well, sort of. Sometimes I'll ask disciples in the fellowship, I say, how did you come to this decision? Like, oh, yeah, I'm moving out to Timbuktu. There's no church, no fellowship within 300 miles. Yeah, I got some advice on it. And yeah, someone felt like that'd be a really good idea. I'm like, what? And they'll say, well, I asked for advice and this is what people told me. And sometimes I just scratch my head because the question isn't merely, did you get advice? The question is, who'd you ask? What'd they say? Did anyone disagree with you? Did you listen carefully to the people who challenged you? And were you really trying to discover the right path, or were you looking for support for your preferred path? That's Rehoboam. That's Rehoboam all the way. Okay, but then we get to Jeroboam. And Jeroboam shows us another way advice can be misused and go wrong. Jeroboam, advice on how to do the wrong thing. So God had made Jeroboam an incredible promise. Remember, Jeroboam was like a hired guy he was like a lieutenant for Solomon. Okay. And then Jeroboam had to flee. He was really solid, but then he just had to run away. Then he comes back after Solomon's dead. And back in 1 Kings chapter 11, God essentially told him that if he would walk faithfully and obey God's commands, God would establish his kingdom and make it last, just like he did with David. That's an amazing promise. He just says, hey, just be kind of like David, just love me, follow me, and I'll make you a king like I made David a king. But once Jeroboam becomes king, he starts getting nervous. He starts getting antsy. Jerusalem is in Rehoboam's kingdom. The temple is in Jerusalem. The people are supposed to go there to worship. That's in the Old Testament. Remember, God had established one place to worship. And so Jeroboam starts thinking, what happens if my people keep traveling back to Jerusalem? What if their hearts go back to Rehoboam? What if I lose my kingdom? Fear takes over. Instead of trusting God's promise, which was very clear and very direct, Jeroboam starts developing a political strategy to secure his throne. And then comes this fascinating line in 1 Kings chapter 12, verse 28. After seeking advice, the king made 2 golden calves. Okay, so there it is again. He sought advice, but Jeroboam wasn't asking, should I trust God? He wasn't asking, what has God commanded? He wasn't asking, what's the faithful thing to do? His heart had already decided where he wanted to go. Now he wanted advice on how to get there. That's totally different advice. He'd already made a decision the direction he's going. He just needed help on how to accomplish it. That's another dangerous way of seeking advice. First, just make the decision, then find advisors who will help you execute a bad decision. And the advice Jeroboam got was actually super effective. I mean, the advice they gave was really right on target. He appealed to people's sense of convenience. He told the people, hey, listen, it's too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Why should you have to walk a few days or 100 miles or 50 miles down to Jerusalem? What a waste of time. I'm going to make it much more convenient for you to worship right here in your neighborhood. Now think about that. Just why travel so far? Why make things difficult? Why sacrifice? Got something easier for you, something closer, something visible, something familiar, 2 golden calves, one in Bethel, one in Dan. Here's the frightening thing. It worked. It worked so well. The people followed him. Politically, it was a brilliant strategy. Spiritually, it was a disaster. That decision introduced a pattern of idolatry that lasted for generations. Again and again, when you read about the later kings of Israel, you come across this phrase. They followed the sins of Jeroboam. His decision got locked in. It got institutionalized. It was cherished. It was a founding sin that it just couldn't be dislodged. The idolatry wasn't finally uprooted until the northern kingdom was destroyed and Israel was carried into exile by Assyria. Now that teaches me something. Something can work and work well and still be totally wrong. You can make more money and absolutely be going in the wrong direction. You can get the promotion and be going in the wrong direction. You can grow a church and be going in the wrong direction. You can get into the relationship you wanted and be going in the absolute wrong direction. You can accomplish your goal and still be going in the wrong direction. Effectiveness isn't the same thing as faithfulness. Let me say that again. Effectiveness isn't the same thing as faithfulness. Bad decisions supported by effective advice can create very long-term problems. The problem with my heart. So why is this so difficult? Well, Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9 says this, the heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? That's one of the important things to understand about decision making. It's something we just can't forget. My heart doesn't always tell me the truth, and it quite often lies to me. Neither does yours. We have an amazing capacity and ability to rationalize what we already want. We can make selfishness sound wise. We can make fear sound prudent. We can make comfort sound responsible. We can make greed sound like good stewardship. We can make pride sound like leadership. And then we go looking for advice that supports it and backs it up. That's why the decisions you make are so important. Think about your own life. A relatively small number of decisions will determine much of its direction and the quality of your life. Think about becoming a Christian. What a huge decision. Okay, great decision if you've decided to become a Christian or you've become a Christian a long time ago. Great decision. Who you marry, it's massive, okay? Making a wrong choice there can really set you back. Where you live, what kind of work you do, how much you work, the friends you choose, how you handle your money, the habits you develop, how you respond to opportunities and adversity, whether you choose faith or fear, whether you choose growth or comfort. The decisions you make determine the direction and quality of your life. So, how can we make better ones? Let me give you 5 principles that I'm trying to practice myself. Number 1, seek advice. Okay, start here. If I'm saying anything, I'm saying that these kings did the right thing by seeking advice. That wasn't bad. First, just seek advice. Get used to asking, hey, what do you think? I want to talk to you about this. I might be missing something. What do you see? What would you do if you're in my position? You don't have to follow every piece of advice you receive. I'm not saying that. Just because you get advice doesn't mean you have to do it. But the habit of seeking advice shows humility and wisdom. It's absolutely encouraged all throughout the Bible. If nobody can speak into your life, you're in a dangerous spot. You're in a spot that no one can warn you against just going off the cliff. Number 2, ask more than one person for advice. Ironically, Rehoboam actually got this part right. He sought multiple perspectives. He asked the older people and he asked the younger ones. Don't surround yourself with an echo chamber, especially with major life decisions like getting married or job choices or, whether I should be working 7 days a week or maybe have a day off on Sunday or something. Get several perspectives: marriage, career, ministry, finances, moving, relationships, major purchases. Talk to more than one wise person and pay a special attention when several people you respect independently tell you something you don't want to hear. Now, you may not like it, but just at least pay attention to it. That might be the very thing you need to hear. Okay, number 3, ask advice from people whose lives you respect and would like to imitate. That's really important. This is really big. Before asking someone for advice, look at the fruit of that person's life. Do I respect their character, their faith, their marriage, their parenting, their relationships, their financial decisions, their walk with God, their character, their emotional maturity? Don't simply ask, do I like this person? Ask, would I like my life to look more like theirs? It's a great question to ask because advice isn't separated from the advisor. You can't get good advice from a bad advisor. It's just not going to work. Number 4, when both choices are good, choose growth. This is a principle that's helped me personally, and I've shared about before. Sometimes there isn't a good choice and a bad choice. Sometimes you're choosing between two relatively good choices. That's when decision making gets really, really tough. And that's when there's things in your life that are swimming beneath the surface that can make a decision that may not be the long-term best choice. It may be okay, but it's not the best. In those situations, I have to ask myself, which choice will demand more from me spiritually? Which one's going to require more faith? Which one will stretch me? Which one will help me become more like Christ? Pam and I faced a decision like this in 2012. At the time, I was leading a church in Oregon. Then we were asked to move to Tucson, Arizona, and plant a church there. Both choices were good. I could stay in Oregon, keep leading, keep serving. My family was there. And there's also another factor. The real estate market was starting to recover. Now, I'd lost everything in the real estate recession of 2008, lost my retirement. I was just, I was in debt. And I'd worked in real estate and I could see a real opportunity to make money as the market came back. I knew that I'd survived and I could take advantage of the resurgence in the real estate market. Or we could move to Tucson, start over, plant another church, build something from scratch. And we spent a lot of time praying, agonizing, and seeking advice about that decision. I called people, I called friends. Ultimately, we chose Tucson. Why? Because when I stripped everything else away, going to Tucson gave us more time to do what we considered our highest priority, which was do the work of the ministry, preach the word. Now, I could still do it back in Oregon, but I had more time to do it. I didn't have to do real estate to support my passion. And it demanded more from us spiritually. It was going to be really challenging and a new challenge. And I also had to confront something in my own heart that was beneath the surface that people didn't really realize. Part of my desire to stay wasn't simply about ministry. I wanted the money. I saw an opportunity to build massive wealth. And I knew it would come. I would be a multimillionaire for sure had I stayed there. And I had to decide, what do I want more? Accumulation or growth? Comfort or calling? Both choices were legitimate, but one demanded more faith from me. Now, I'm not saying that the hardest choice is always God's choice. That's not true, but when you're choosing between two good options, it can be helpful to ask, which choice is going to help me grow more? Which choice requires greater faith? Which choice is going to stretch my character? And which choice will help me be more like Jesus? Don't automatically assume that the easiest option is the best option. Okay, fifth point, don't be afraid or embarrassed to change your mind. Okay, maybe you've already made a decision. Maybe you already told everybody what you're going to do. Maybe you got advice. Maybe you followed the wrong advice. Maybe you ignored the advice you should have listened to. That's okay. Okay, just give yourself a little grace. Change your mind. Go back, change direction, apologize if necessary, take the better road. You don't have to continue down the wrong road simply because you've already traveled a long way down it. That's just pride. Humility says, I was wrong. I didn't listen. I see things differently now. I'm changing direction. Maturity doesn't mean you never make a bad decision. Maturity means you're willing to correct a bad decision once you recognize it. So what are you really looking for? Rehoboam and Jeroboam both sought advice. That's what makes their stories so challenging. Rehoboam sought advice, but chose the advice that appealed to his pride. Jeroboam sought advice after fear had already convinced him not to trust God. One used advice to justify what he wanted. The other used advice to execute what he'd already decided. So here's the question I want you to think about today. When you seek advice, what are you actually looking for? Wisdom or validation? Truth or permission? God's direction or somebody who'll bless the direction you've already chosen? The next time you're facing an important decision, seek advice. Ask more than one person. Ask people whose lives you respect. Listen especially carefully to the advice you don't want to hear. And if you're caught between two good choices, ask, which path will help me trust God more? Which path will demand greater humility? Which path is going to help me grow? Which path will help me be more like Jesus? Sometimes the advice you least want to hear is exactly the advice you need. Thanks for listening. Here's how you can help support the program. First of all, read and review one of my books. I've got 4 books out now, and I'm excited about that. My most recent is Before You Quit, for the Christian who feels done. It's really a book I wrote just to encourage people who are on the brink of walking away. You can find all these books on Amazon or at my website at robskinner.com. Just look up Rob Skinner books on Amazon. Secondly, you can make a gift to the program. The link is in the show notes because my goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.